Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Today we have Alejandro Dabdoub. Now, he is a good example of what I consider the American dream. He was born in a foreign country. He was actually born in Mexico City. He came to the University of New Orleans, got a degree in business, and now for 2 decades has been very successful in different business ventures. I've known Alejandro for a couple of years now and have followed him through some pretty interesting changes and ideas. I mean, during COVID, when there was a big crunch on paint and sheetrock and lumber, he didn't sit around and complain. He went out and found a solution and found ways to possibly engage companies in South and Central America and bring their products to the United States to help with the supply chain. It was pretty amazing what I watched. Anyway, welcome, Alejandro, to the podcast.
Jason, thanks so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
You know, Alejandro, I want to know and want you to share with our listeners a little bit about your journey, how it was that you were born in Mexico City and now you're in Houston doing multi-million-dollar deals.
So I went to the University of New Orleans, and kind of throughout the process, I started studying, one of the courses was entrepreneurship. And on the course, I started talking with my father, asking him for guidance, and he told me 2 very important things. One, have your income in dollars and live in pesos because of exchange rate, and you can understand the difference there. And the second one was real estate. So, I really wanted to focus on real estate, but again, as a student, you're kind of hesitant of what you do, what you put on paper for a program. And he told me, do something that you're going to use in real life, and I'll help you realize that dream. But make sure all the teachers approve what you're doing. So my entrepreneurial class, I made a project for start constructing shopping plazas, strip malls. So after I got an A on the project and everything, probably the only A I got in college, but I was a terrible student. So I got an A on that one because I really felt it was something that I really wanted to do. So I brought him the paper. He saw it, and he said, now let's go talk to a bank. The teachers approved it. I approve it. Let's go talk to a bank. So
to do it in real life, is we're taking it to the next step? Let's go do it for real. Is that kind of what am I understanding?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we went to a bank. We got a loan. Bought the first lot, vacant lot, and kind of after I finished college, took it to the next step. So while I was doing that, I was kind of debating if I was going to go back to Mexico or not, what the process would be. But anyway, I ended up going I think it was about 5 years or 6 years. I ended up going back to Mexico, and a couple of things happened, security, and a couple of things that we just decided to move here in the States. By that time, I had already invested in apartment complexes just as an investor, but I got invited to be a principal in the company with the apartments in 2016. So that's almost 7 years ago. So it's been a slow process. Everything's been step by step, but it all starts just with having a great relationship with my father.
That's great. I love that. Is your dad still around?
No, he passed 11 years ago.
11 years ago. So I love that. Well, 2 really good pieces of advice from your dad, and obviously you've gone after that. How many doors do you or your group do you have under management now?
We have very close to 30,000.
Holy cow!
So when you joined the group in 2016, I think you said?
Yes.
How many were under at that time?
So on the management side, we had 24,000, but on the construction side, that's where it's the most interesting part. So I don't do so much the management. Truthfully, I think it's too complicated. I don't know how they do it to manage 30,000 doors. So I started with a group helping on the investor side, and I think that's where we've seen the major growth. Back then, we had an average of 500 units a year. Sometimes it would be 2 projects, sometimes, but it was an average. This year, we're between, depending on a new contract that we have, 4,500 to 5,000 that we have already bought the property for, already on architectural design and looking for permits. So the growth, has been exponentially.
So you're on the acquisition side, I take it, right? And from ground up is how you're doing it.
Correct. Not acquisitions, ground up. Yeah.
Alejandro, I'm a little bit unfamiliar with kind of your story. I don't know you as well as my father. What is this group that you're involved with? What kind of group is it, and how did you get involved with them?
So the first involvement came when I finished college. Again, I didn't know if I should go back or not. So I got introduced to the president of real estate for Whitney Bank. And he's the one that told me, you need to stay in the States. You need to meet this group with the apartment complexes. So I started with them, if I'm correct, in 2002 as an investor, passive. Again, I would go back to Mexico. I would be doing my shopping strips and all other things. Never got involved in the company or anything. Then in the crisis of 2008, there was an issue in one of the projects, and if instead of just shutting down and saying you're a terrible group and all that, I kind of came up and said, well, let's fix it. If the problem is there's no capital out there, let's target foreign investors to come to the States for this kind of projects. So we were able to pass the hurdle by bringing a Mexican investor who was great. It was more of trust. He didn't ask for anything. I mean, he gave his first $1 million without signing a contract. And he said, go fix your problem. And whenever you fix it, I need the contract because I need to tell my boss where the money went. So it was quite impressive. So from there, that's when the conversation started, and I got invited to become a partner. Again, at the beginning, I was more on the passive side, but after I came to live here, I kind of started hearing things in the conferences. And the company right now, it's integrated. It's fully integrated. So we have the development team, the construction, the management. Throughout COVID, just sitting down in meetings, we started importing materials. So now we have the importing side. Right now, again, you start hearing things in meetings. We're building our own renters insurance company. We're kind of expanding into different areas within the same company because now we have the volume. So you'll realize I'm a little hyperactive. I can't really focus on just one specific thing. So I need to kind of get something rolling, leave it to somebody else, and move to something new.
You said you were introduced to the president of the bank. Was there a key person that made that introduction? Was it a professor? How did that actually happen?
So curiously enough, it was a friend of my father's who was a banker in New Orleans. For some reason, he knew the president, and he was the only person he knew here in Houston. So it wasn't like he directly meant for me to go to that person. It was more like, oh, this is the only person I know in Houston.
Interesting. So you have had a pretty varied experience with different things, and I know recently you actually had the opportunity to go to Rome, and you had an audience with the Pope. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. So we got invited to Rome last October.
So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, what was that the invitation like? security. Just generally tell us a little bit about that experience. There's not many people. I have never met anybody else that's had that. I mean, the closest I've come to that was my dad was in World War II, and he actually was part of the first forces into Rome, right? And then they had the Pope did a celebration kind of thing, and he's way up there in the Vatican, and my dad was in the audience as a soldier. That's as close as I know someone who's had an audience with the Pope. So it's pretty cool. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's a very interesting story, and I think in this case, it's more of your purpose in life and the mindset that you get in life. And where I'm going with this is, I had no idea about everything that goes on in Rome, how they do things and everything. But I had the idea of, I'm going to be 50 years old. I think it would be great to go to Rome. I never thought about the Pope or anything like that. Just to go to Rome. I have a blessing at the Vatican. So that stayed with me for a couple, about a year and a half, 2 years. I started asking some priests, "Oh, can I have a 50-year-old blessing?" Or I said, "No, it's impossible." And you know how life is. But I always kept it in my mind. When I'm 50, I have to go to Rome. So all of a sudden, I get introduced to another priest from Lumen Institute, who I didn't really think I would do too many big things with. And all of a sudden, he calls and tells me, "Would you be interested in going to Rome in October?" So my 50th birthday was in October, by the way. So everything matched my birthday, the trip, and everything. And I said, "Sure. What are we gonna do, or what's gonna happen?" And he says, "Oh, it's a big group. We're all going from different parts of the country, from the U.S., and you're more than welcome if you want to go." And that's it. So it seems simple enough, right? You get your mindset, you want something, you get the invitation. So all of a sudden we get to Rome, and funnily enough, the Father Nathaniel calls and tells me, "You know what? You're the only one that came, so I'm going to be with you the whole trip." So
Wow.
of course, he had already made some arrangements and things, and he introduced me to another group who we joined, on the business side, and dignifying people's lives and employment and things like that. But it just happened, it just happened to be him with us. He brought us all through Rome, through all the Vatican back doors, all the old churches, museums. He organized private lunches in the Vatican. It was quite amazing. And funnily enough, something happened after that they're not going to have that trip this year. They might not have it next year. So it was kind of something just came up to where it was aligned with my mindset to be at the time and the year that I was thinking of. So anyway, so that's kind of the mindset, how sometimes when you think of something, when you really want something and you integrate it into your life, it comes to be. So
it's a great example of, the things you learn in Thinking Grow Rich and all the different, the right books. That's what they talk about, is having that mindset first. What are some other lessons that you might share with our listeners around that topic of mindset, and in particular money, because and investing?
I think that the worst problem that most people have is thinking of scarcity, thinking that they need a job to be able to accomplish whatever dream they want. And you need to start thinking of your capabilities and how you can accomplish things by not having a job, being an entrepreneur. I don't know if you all realize, but the highest paying group in taxes in the United States is wages. if you play with entrepreneurship, you can even take advantage of a lot of benefits. So I think in the money side, you always have to think big. And it's amazing how sometimes you think, when I was young, $1 million was a lot of money. Right now, $1 million is not that much. But if you were thinking, oh, whenever I make my first 10 million, I'm going to retire, you're going to get there and you're never going to retire. Whenever you get your first 10, you're going to want 15, and then you're going to go for 20, because then you have built the awareness of the things you're able to accomplish. So the main thing would be become aware of what's out there, and that it is possible that you can do it. But you have to build the awareness. You have to really be aware, study the right people, hang around people, just become aware of what is possible.
Give us some recommendations of how people, a listener listening in, maybe the first time they've heard this podcast, what would you recommend them to do to raise their awareness, or some people to maybe listen to?
I think Warren Buffett, on his book Snowflakes, and of course you, but I'll talk about you in a second. There's a lot of books, a lot of people to follow that, you can start becoming aware. Now, on your side, what you do, I think if you have the right insurance, like in my case, I'll talk about my specific case with my kids. They have their own insurance policy on their own life, to where my youngest daughter is 6 years old. So a lot of people will say, oh, why 6 years old? Oh, it's, you shouldn't even be thinking about if she's going to die. It's not going to happen. And that's not the purpose of thinking of a life insurance policy. The purpose is they can ask for money, they can ask for loans. If anything happens whenever they're in college, or if they want to buy a house, or it's the cheapest money they'll ever be able to take a loan on. So there's so many benefits. I can give them free money right now. I can give them non-taxable money, gifting, or whichever way I can find it, to where I don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to pay taxes. They'll make their investment grow through a life insurance policy. Yeah. So it's quite amazing what you can do.
What would you say is when someone should start investing?
For what I learned, again, my daughter's 6 years old, and it's not that she started investing. I started investing for her, if you want to call it investing, on the life insurance. But time goes by real quick. So I don't know, whatever age it would be to our listeners, I would say the best time to start is today. It doesn't matter how big or small. You need to start becoming aware of the importance of how much your capital can grow over time.
Correct. And obviously real estate plays a big part in what you would say where people should be putting their money.
I love real estate, and for me, the most important part, again, coming from Mexico, right now the U.S. is starting to be living in some inflation, which is not, most people aren't used to, but in Mexico we were used to very high inflations. One of the most important sides of real estate is it's going to grow with inflation. Your rents are going to grow with inflation, so you're protected on that side.
On the podcast, we often talk about the importance of team. We've talked a little bit about mindset, which is a big portion. Also, team. Tell us a little bit about some of the key players. Obviously, your dad, right, was probably the top of the list. Go ahead, Carter.
I was going to say, a minute ago, you mentioned, that part of growing as an individual and building your mindset is surrounding yourself with individuals to help you grow. So that to me says that you have a team already, right? So tell us a little bit about that team and how you've met those people and how you've identified those people that have helped you to become who you are and get to where you are today.
Yeah, I think the team, it's the most important part, and you have to really surround yourself with people that you really trust. Because in my specific case, I'm not in just one business every day. So sometimes I'm looking to 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses, but I have to trust the leadership of that particular business. So if you get the right team, it doesn't have to be just on on a broker or on a advisor, but within your company, you'll be able to grow because you'll be able to delegate. I think the most important part about the team is the conversation that you have, how aware you become of what's going on all of your surroundings, and the trust that you have in them, being able to delegate. A lot of people can have a big team, but they like to micromanage. And I don't think that works. I think you need to be able to let people that really know what they do focus on what they do, and you can focus on the strategy on what to grow everything around them. And that's just like I was mentioning a little while ago. We manage 30,000 apartments. If you ask me anything about management, I would probably say I'd have no idea. And today I have no idea how anybody can manage 30,000 units. It's just the right team's there. They know exactly what they're doing, and I trust them.
And obviously being trustworthy, because you have partners or other people on your team, they're looking to you to take care of your lane, right? To do what you're supposed to do. And that's a key part too. You got to have people around you, but you also got to play your part. You got to step up and do what you say you're going to do.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. The strategy side it's critical because you need to guide the whole team. Even if you don't know what they do on a day-to-day basis, you need to know exactly where they're going, and you need to make sure they know that they're part of a group that is focusing on one goal. Whatever the goal is, they need to know where you're all going. And that's where I come, kind of guiding them on the strategy side.
Listening to you, it sounds like you have lived an absolutely perfectly charmed life. Rising.
We're sure that's not the case, but
yeah, and that's possibly not the case. I would like to know though, and we often ask this on the podcast. Tell us a little bit. Pick out a time when there was a crash and burn, right? Sometimes where you fell down, you had some trouble, whatever that is. I don't know how much you want to go into the details. However, then give us some antidotes or things that you learned from. Maybe it's a business that failed. Maybe it's a project that's got hit by a hurricane. I don't know. Just pick one. We would like to know, not that we're picking at your armor, right? It's more about saying, for the listeners, some listeners saying, well, there's no way I can be like Alejandro. He's got a blessed life. He's everything. He even met with the Pope when he's 50. Come on, how many people get to do that? Yet the reality is you put your pants on the same way as all the rest of us, right? One leg at a time. And you have gone through things and picked yourself up, learned, and gone better. So go ahead.
So just for the listener, I'm going to talk, I'm going to mention one, but there's been a whole bunch. There's no way you can be successful in life without failures. Either personal, financial, business. You learn from failures, but the main thing is you're not failing, you're just learning. So as long as you know that it's a learning process, it's not going to affect you. Whenever you let something affect you, that's when it becomes a problem. So, I had a whole bunch, but I think I'm going to talk about the funniest one just to make it funny because it's a failure. So we started flipping houses right before COVID. About a year before COVID. So we flipped the first house, everything's great. And we say, oh, it's a great business. We're going to start flipping houses and everything. And we bought the second property, and the second property, it's terrible. So there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do. And we finished the house. We finished after a long journey of building the house and everything. We finished the house, And typical, you go for contract, you go to sell it. We sign the contract, and everything's great. And all of a sudden, the freeze hits in Houston. I don't know if you all knew, but there was a big freeze in Texas, and everything was pretty bad. So the title company calls us and says, we're going to be closed for whatever time the freeze is. Everything got shut down, and we're like, oh, no big deal. We call the client, and the client says it's understandable. It's not a big deal. We'll just wait. So all of a sudden, the freeze starts to pass, and we start running all around between the apartments and everything, just kind of figuring that out. I get a call from the fire marshal, and they tell me, your house is on fire. What do you mean the house is on fire? So anyway, so apparently when the pipelines broke, the water hit some cables, and everything just, the whole house got on fire. So we lost a little over half the house. We had to completely redo. And, from the smoke, all the smell and everything, we just had to redo the whole house. So, funny enough, you call so I called my partner there and say, oh, we need to call the insurance company. He's like, well, I thought the house was sold and I canceled the policy.
Oh,
we don't have insurance.
Oh no.
So we lost everything. I mean, we lost the house. We had to rebuild it. We were lucky. The client said, well, if you rebuild it and the quality is the same that it was, I'll rebuy it whenever you're ready. It's not a big deal. But we didn't have insurance. We lost the whole house and everything, and it was a big mess. So and the reason I'm saying it's a funny story was we got the same team that built the house. We put some mariachis on top. So one of the workers, he played in a mariachi band, and of course we're Mexican, and we kind of made I think I even still have the video. It's like the sunken ship, like the Titanic. So the band, the group got on the roof, where they could even stand, and they're starting just playing the music so all the workers would get back and redo the house and everything. So, and I think that's where I was talking about attitude. I could have just said, oh, we lost the house, we didn't have insurance, we're not, and it's more like, we got mariachi band on the roof, and everybody working in the bottom, just cleaning out the house, taking care of everything. Not a good experience, but it's just how you look at things that you can rebuild your life. Again, that's one. You go through a lot of failures in life to get to where you are. It doesn't matter where you are. The thing is what you learn from them.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. That is kind of
Yes,
fun.
thank you. That's a tough experience.
Yeah.
So, Alejandro, you published a book. Has it been 2 years ago, 3 years ago? How long has it been since you published your first book?
I think it's 3 years now.
3 years now. And the title of that book is?
Winning: The Art of Becoming an American Investor.
And your target audience for that was originally?
So the target for that was Mexican investors, and that's another interesting, and I'll do this one shorter, and it's an interesting failure story. But it's for Mexican investors to come legally to the United States, to go through the right process, but mostly for them to understand that if you do things right in the United States, it's amazing. The American dream is amazing. But you have to do things right and really adapt to the American culture, because here, a lie is a big deal. In Mexico, they're typically, it's a custom. But so it's just kind of think a little different, but really adapt to the way things are done here. And one of my major purposes on that is a lot of foreigners, not just Mexicans, foreigners, come to the United States, still having businesses in Mexico, having to go back and forth every week. And after 2 years or whatever, they get divorced. So one of the purposes of the book was really talk between the couple of what the purpose is, your goals, where you're going, be open on your purpose in life. Because it's very expensive to go through a divorce. I'm just not talking economically, I'm talking more psychologically and things like that. It's quite a hassle. And it's all about conversation. It's all just about doing the right thing. So now my failure story on that one was I didn't get deported, but I had to return without a visa to Mexico because when I bought my first property in the States, I bought the property, I set up a company for the property, and I didn't have an investor visa. I had a tourist and business visa, not an investor. So I had the two right visas, but anyway. So I got detained in immigration, and they tell me, you're investing in the United States. I said, well, here's my business visa. I bought the lot. And the purpose of my trip is I'm going to talk with architects, with attorneys to see how I'm going to build my business. Oh, that's an investor. So you're lying to immigration and you're not coming with the right visa. Anyway, I kind of
wait a second. I want to be clear. This is back to that original parcel as part of your project in college.
Yeah.
That you said,
and it's already after
mall.
you bought it.
And so this is 10, 15 years later.
No, it's about 18 years ago.
Yeah, they came back on you because you wrote it in your book. You talked about it in your book. Is that what I'm hearing?
No. This happened way back then.
Okay, keep going.
No, this happened way back then. Yeah, and so I kind of managed with a police officer to tell him, I didn't know you needed a different visa. Let me go back to my whole country, change my visa, and come back. And so he said, okay. So he did something to my visa and sent me back to Mexico. Anyway, supposedly, if I didn't had told him the truth, if I didn't had withdrawn my entry, because my thing was, I didn't know. Now you tell me what I'm supposed to do. I'll go back and do things right. So with that, I was able to get my investor visa and right now my residency and everything. But if I had said one or two wrong things to that officer, I wouldn't have been able to come back to the United States for more than 10 years. So I was almost deported. I did it on my own. But it was a big failure because I couldn't come. I had the property there. I had the investments with the apartments here. I couldn't come here for over a year. It was a long process, a long legal and expensive process. So that's what I'm saying. Know your surroundings. Know what you're doing. Be aware of everything that goes around you, because you can be hit pretty bad if you don't. So anyway, so that's kind of the story of the book. It's helping people come legally, and so they don't have to go through all the hassles.
So the book's about learning from your mistakes so they can come in and do it. And you still, you appeared on a lot of TV shows and you got quite a bit of publicity around that, in the event memory serves me correctly. And that's available on Amazon?
Yes, that's on Amazon.
Okay, great. And we'll put a link in the show notes that, those are listening, you just go to the show notes and click on it and you could get that book. So Alejandro, I want to know now, in the event that you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give that person now? And I'm certain you're going to say what your dad said, income in dollars, live on pesos, and real estate. So let's kind of have that as a foundation. What additionally would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Believe in yourself. Study what you want to do. Set your whole goals high and believe in yourself. Sometimes we don't realize the importance of time. We think short term. So just by thinking much longer term, we can accomplish things.
Okay. I love that.
So
Thank you.
I did make a lot of mistakes. Most of them I don't regret because I learned from them. But I would definitely say set your goals high. Anything is possible. I mean, it's amazing, but sometimes we feel that we can't do certain things, and all of a sudden, things come together, and you start doing things. So just believe in yourself.
So with that, Alejandro, talking about setting your goals high, I mean, what's next for you? Where are you going to be 5 years down the road? What's your next goal?
So I'm focusing more on the apartments. Again, right now we're building about 4,500 to 5,000. So my goal is to keep that in a pipeline. So not just to make it a one-off and to where we build them, have control. So we want to be building. My goal would be between 10 to 15,000. I don't want to go over the 15,000 because I think it's way too big. I want to get the management company to over 50,000. But my main goal is to have a close family. My relationship with my kids, with my wife and my kids, because if I'm strong with my family, I can go out and I can do 10,000, 15,000, whatever apartments. If I can come home to a relaxed and secure ambience, to where I can really decompress and enjoy my family.
Thank you. That's awesome. That is one part of the team we haven't discussed, and that is your relationship with your spouse. I think that in my scenario, as far as living people, that is the number one person on my team is my spouse, and then your kids. Remind me the age ranges of your children.
12, 10, and 6.
12, 10, and 6. So they're starting to get to that age to where they could be like Carter, right? Or Scott, to where they're part of my team. There's things that I wonder about, and I do call them. Both of them have degrees in business from the Marriott School of Business, and they're wise people and can add to that. So you said about 4,000 to 5,000 a year. So, and you want to get to 50,000. So I want to know how you
50,000 on the management side.
On the management side, okay, and the other side doing 4 to 5 a year for ongoing, right? So
yeah, my idea, or at least my goal right now, is for 20 years. We have no idea. Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen after, but at least right now I can see in 20 years what's going to happen.
How would you feel about coming back on the podcast as a guest when you do hit 50,000? You come back and say, I want to celebrate, right? We kind of ask all our guests, throw something out there. We had, varying goals from different people. And then we want to make an open invitation to you right now on the podcast that's recorded, that for you, when you hit that 50,000, we want you to come back and we will celebrate, and we'll tell everybody about it and how the journey from 30,000 to 50,000.
Definitely. Thank you.
I love that. So, Carter, how would you like to, any words that you've gleaned from this that you'd like to add in towards the end of this episode?
Man, I don't know. Where do I start? I think there's been some awesome pieces of knowledge and wisdom that you've shared with us, Alejandro, and I think probably the biggest one is thinking big. I don't think that people realize just how much they're capable of, like you said, even in my short time, and I'm just kind of starting into my professional career, I've accomplished way more than I thought I would be able to in this time if it wasn't for the people that I've been able to surround myself with. So thank you for shedding some more light on that.
Yeah, and I think one important thing that we just missed, and I'll be quick on this one, but be disciplined to follow up on what you want. Don't let yourself something simple drag you down when it doesn't happen, because some things happen for lessons. You need to learn from that, but the main goal, which is the big goal, you need to really push every day to get there.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Any last words, Alejandro? We will put a link to your book. Is there, in the event someone wanted to get in touch with you, is that the best way, or you can, maybe you can supply us another link in the event someone wanted to contact you. Maybe someone in Mexico wants to get a hold of you and invest with you. I'm certain you'd take that.
Oh yeah, definitely. So in the book, there's my email and everything.
Okay, that's a great thing to do. And in the event you want a different link, we'll put it in the show notes. Thanks everyone.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.